Hello, everyone. Good
Hello.
morning. I
Good
welcome you
morning.
all to the webinar
Good
on
afternoon.
child sexual abuse during COVID-19 pandemic in India. Before we begin with this really exciting webinar, I would first like to introduce you all to our panelists. We have with us Dr. Jugal Kishore, who's the Director, Professor and Head of Safdarjung Hospital and Vardhaman Mahavir Medical Center. We have Ms. Monica Lakhanpal, who's the co-managing partner, Gaggar and Partners, Solicitors and Advocates. She's highly recommended for her astute legal acumen and pragmatic legal strategy. She counsels clients on issues pertaining to women and child rights, which include inter alia POSCO, POSH compliances, and human rights. She has been instrumental in sensitizing and conditioning the women working forces such as IPS, CISF, and other organizations regarding sexual exploitation and offences. We also have with us Jitendra Narayan Bhardwaj, who's the project manager of Beyond Eye Foundation. He's a researcher, peer educator, trainer, and curriculum designer who has been working with adolescents on comprehensive sexuality education since 2014. We also would have with us Miss Sarita, but she's currently not there. But we really hope she'll be able to join in soon. Meanwhile, I would request all the participants to please keep themselves on mute. If there are any questions, queries, comments for the panelists, please feel free to use the chat box. I will redirect the same for the panelists. So let's begin the very exciting session for today, the very informative session. So my first question is for Dr. Jugal. Dr. Jugal, could you please explain a little about the burden of childhood sexual abuse during the pandemic?
Vrinda, first of all, good morning to everybody. Rather, good afternoon. And you are doing a good job. And I hope that this whole talk is going to be beneficial to the parents and people who are looking after the children, and also the people who are carer of the children. Child is very important, but unfortunately, if we talk about this pandemic, COVID pandemic, children are not the face. It is always the patient, and somewhere they are not the face, but unfortunately, they are the highest risk of this pandemic. The reason is that the whole thing is disturbed, and they are very sensitive. The children are sensitive, so they are affected more, and the damage to the children is high in countries like India, who are in resource setting, they are not very good. Or maybe I think we can say all Southeast Asia region, we have a problem because of the we don't have very good rights of the children, and also to slum areas, and we have already seen that how our children were moved with their families at the time of lockdown. So one of the center has identified, that is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have said that they have experienced 106% of the increased global report on suspected child sexual exploitation on the cyber tip line from the last March 2019. So in 1 year, you can say up to the March, we have sudden increase of the cases. Another government report, which is a government helpline, that is the Child Line India, reported 92,000 distress call of child abuse and violence in first 11 days of the national wide lockdown. So you can imagine that in 10 days we have the 92,000 calls. So till now, how many people must have suffered? How many children must have suffered from this? So exact data is really don't know. And if we have a whatever information, it's just a tip of iceberg. Then the closure of school, it has been found out in previous pandemic like the Ebola and swine flu. It has been found out that Africa, West Africa, the child labor and neglect and sexual abuse of the children, and even the teenage pregnancy increase manifold. So that is indirect evidence that this pandemic is also having such kind of problem, because we have a long duration of school closure, and even the instance of child marriage increased during this lockdown. So that is very interesting. Nobody understands that how much child is suffering because of these all disturbance happening because of the COVID. It is also found out on the net that 95% increase of the search on the content of child sex has been noted. So that is also indirectly indicating that people are searching for the sexual act with the child on the net. So what can be said that this pandemic, COVID pandemic, where our focus is not on children, but they are the one of the biggest group if we include our adolescent and also our youth. So it is almost 35 to 40% of the population, and they are all neglected, and they are actually very sensitive, and their mental status disturbed. Their whole life changes when they suffer from sexual abuse and exploitation. So that is the amount of burden which is largely hidden. So this is one way of saying that we require more studies and more more data on this issue.
Thank
Vrinda.
you so much, Dr. Jugal. Thank you. That was very informative. So, taking a cue from what you said, I would like to move to Miss Monica. That Miss Monica, why do you think that despite there being an exclusive available law on this, the numbers of childhood sexual abuse are still going up?
This question is slightly off, because I'll tell you, sometimes the question is not the problem and therefore the answer is not the solution. Our law has been there ever since British times to counter such problems, such kind of sexual assault or harassment, but the numbers are spiking up. And one doesn't know why, what's the reason, because the
Monica, your connection is very
law is
disturbing.
in place, there are penal provisions, but then something is amiss. Recently, 2012, this POCSO came in. According to me, if I just analyze that through all kinds, despite that error in the middle, some stringent punishments. Yeah, there's something wrong. Can you hear that? Hello.
Please repeat what you have said, because it was all missed.
Oh, so sorry. Can you hear me now? Am I? Hello.
Yeah, now you can speak. We can hear you now better.
Difficult task. So should I start from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I can't hear Jitendra ji, because I think you muted your.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start with the question. So as I said, sometimes the question is not the problem and therefore the answer is not the solution. The problem is not the law enforcement. You see, ever since British times, there have been laws which protect all our citizens against any kind of sexual offenses. In fact, in 1850, when IPC was codified, You know, there are all penal provisions in place. Despite everything, the crime rate is just going up in this domain. There is definitely a miss we can't understand. After that, recently, if you're seeing 2012, POCSO came in, which according to me was a breakthrough act, because this is the only act which gave a definitive recognition to all kind of child abuse, any kind of sexual child abuse. But despite that, everything in place, stringent in place, the crime rate going up. I'm so sorry, I'll have to keep checking because there is some issue here. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, but your voice is breaking in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to understand where is the main problem. I don't know why this is happening. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to understand where is the problem. What are we struggling with? Is it our mindset or is the availability of law? Because availability of law, as I clearly said, there is a law available for us. And ever since pre-independence time. So we don't need to worry about that. And especially after POCSO, we are absolutely secured as far as the law is concerned. The problem is our mindset. If you see in today's time, I mean, from the time I was a child, if you are watching a movie with a family and an ad comes which shows a sanitary pad, you know, the ladies of the house will disintegrate. They will go to the kitchen for some work or the other. The men will talk about the most innocuous things which are irrelevant. But the point is, they all are trying to divert from that 30-minute ad which they don't want to confront. The issue is that. The issue is anything which is remotely associated with sex is taken as a taboo in our culture, which I feel is the biggest problem to counter this menace. You know, that I really feel one needs to change. Like I have seen so many times a mother whose child is injured or assaulted by a neighbor will be the first one to go out in society and defame the neighbor and say he's responsible, he's a violent character, you know, and try and just even go to a police station. That's the first step for her towards getting justice. But when the same child is sexually assaulted, the first thing the mother will do is, beta kamre mein aa jao, ye baatein bahar nahi karte, and she will shut this topic forever in four walls of the house. The problem is not, therefore, the enforcement agencies or law. Every day, till we are talking, there are 120 reported cases of sexual abuse. But let me tell you, the relevant word here is reported, which is just the tip of the iceberg. The unreported cases, we are far, far from the actual data. Because once we get that, it will be difficult for us to breathe. It's going to be suffocating. Every fourth house that we counter, there is a child who's being sexually abused, and unfortunately by family members, even blood relations. So what is the way out? Are we ready to bridge that gap? Are we ready to just ensure that once the crime happens, the first step we have to take is report? And that can only happen if the comfort level is there between families. We start opening up, we start educating our children. When we walk, when we teach our child to cross the road when he's a baby, we hold the hand and say, baby, protect yourself from the injury. Koi gaadi nahi maar de. But at the same time, we think that we don't need to protect our child against sexual abuse because what? Breast is not my organ, or a reproductive organ or a sexual organ is not my organ. But lungs are, kidney is. That's a wrong perception. You know, that's how a child is growing up. Anything which is something to do with sex, that you tell your child, okay, baby, quiet. You can't talk about this, which is a wrong approach. You are responsible for the growth. Don't blame the law agencies. Don't blame anyone. Of course, it's very good to blame the government for everything, but sometimes it's genuinely not their problem. They've done their job. It's your job to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Monica. Also, we We have with us Ms. Sarita now, who's the District Child Protection Officer for West and Southwest Delhi. We welcome you, Ms. Sarita. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So one of the questions that we would like to direct to you is that what are the facilities provided by the Department of Women and Child Development to the sexually abused children during the COVID-19 pandemic?
मैम डिपार्टमेंट ने जो WCD है उन्होंने जो अपनी जो फैसिलिटी जो कोविड के टाइम पे दी है उसके अंदर जो है हमने आइसोलेशन वार्ड बनाए हैं अपने निर्मल छाया कॉम्प्लेक्स में और लाजपत नगर जो चिल्ड्रन होम फॉर बॉयज है उनके लिए और प्रयास होम जो है JJB का वहाँ पर हमारे आइसोलेशन वार्ड बने जो भी बच्चे हमारे पास चाहे वो सेक्सुअल अब्यूज के हैं चाहे वो हमारे चाइल्ड लेबर के हैं जो ऑर्फन है अबंडन है उनके लिए हमने आइसोलेशन वार्ड बनवाए थे जो आइसोलेशन वार्ड के अंदर वो उन बच्चों को हम जो भी आते थे पहले हम उनको 14 डेज के लिए वहां पर रखते थे और उनके अंदर देखते थे कि उनके अंदर कुछ भी अगर लगता है कि कुछ भी लक्षण है तो उसके लिए हम पहले उनका टेस्ट करवाते थे तो डिपार्टमेंट ने और जब और ये भी प्रॉब्लम थी कि कोविड के टाइम पर कि ट्रांसपोर्ट की बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम थी तो डिपार्टमेंट ने जहाँ पर भी हमारे CCIs थे तो वहाँ पर ट्रांसपोर्ट की भी फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड की थी जिसमें से कि स्टाफ को भी क्योंकि स्टाफ को भी आने में प्रॉब्लम हो रही थी तो स्टाफ को भी उन्होंने प्रोवाइड किया था और सैनिटाइजर और मास्क वगैरह भी हमारे डिपार्टमेंट ने प्रोवाइड किए सारे CCIs के अंदर और जहाँ पर हमारे सैनिटाइज कराना था पूरे के पूरे CCIs के लिए तो उसके लिए DCPO को डायरेक्शन दिया गया था कि आप MCD से कोऑर्डिनेट करें और सारे के सारे जितने भी CCIs हैं उनको आप सैनिटाइजर कराएं तो रेगुलरली हमारे CCIs अभी भी सैनिटाइज हो रहे हैं इवन कि हमारे हमारे जो डिपार्टमेंट ने वन स्टॉप सेंटर से भी कोऑर्डिनेट किया था और वहां पर भी हमारे बच्चे आइसोलेशन में रखे गए थे जब हमारे एक बच्चा जो है कोविड में निकल गया था तो उसको सील कर दिया गया तो उसमें हमने जो है वन स्टॉप सेंटर जो निर्मल छाया का है उससे हमने हेल्प ली थी
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Sarita. So moving on with the questions, one of the things I would like to direct to Mr. Jitendra is that how does sexual abuse become even more important to tackle during the pandemic? We have been discussing the issues, but how does the pandemic affect this problem even further?
Hi, thank you, Vrinda, for that question. So before we get into understanding, like, I mean, we all know that sexual abuse happens. It happens inside the family, it happens outside the family, but how do we even understand that kind of a dynamic that goes on? So I would like to start with I will take cues from Monica's, what Monica has said and what Dr. Jugal has said, and I'll then bring it a small bit brief understanding of what I want to say in this for this particular question. So when we see, so imagine a child, the child is at the core, and then child has multiple relations around them. So imagine a concentric circle. So the immediate circle for the child is the family. That could be the parents. Then you would see the immediate family. That could be the grandparents if the child lives in a joint family. If they can be neighbors outside, and then you see the periphery starts to begin form. Right. The formation of periphery would always be, oh, there is school, the peer, you'll see in the school there are classmates, there are batchmates, there are their own peers, their close friends, and then you see the school staff, you'll see the people in the neighborhood. So you'll see the child interacts not just with the family but interacts with like multiple ways. The traditional understanding of child sexual abuse has been that, oh my god, there is a monster that's outside on the street and that's going to come and attack the child, but they generally don't talk about what's happened when those circles are not there anymore. What COVID pandemic does, it erases all the other circles and keeps the child in one particular. It keeps the child into this one particular core center where all the immediate families are there. And as Monica rightly said, that when sexual abuse happens, a lot of family it has been noticed that family try to suppress the idea because there is a lot of shame related to it. So if the child is a girl, they would say that oh, it's related to the honor. We should not take this news outside because the society will say, oh my God, the girl child is impure. With the boys, the stigma goes much higher. And if you look at the idea of, because there are a lot of children who are LGBT also, and you see when abuse happened on them, there is then there is like more kind of suppression that happens. You see within this concentric circle ideas how child has to interact with that, and a lot of understanding of child sexual abuse, we always think that we need to protect the child, we need to place law in place, we need to educate the parents, we need to do all that. But what we miss in this beginning is the perspective from the child itself. We rarely involve the child into the conversation. We generally say it's what I feel like it becomes really important because the traditional kind of ideas that we have that, we'll tell the child, oh, these are the laws. If happens, you come to us, you do this to us. But you really don't give the chance to child to understand how he's going to take or how she is going to understand if some incident happened. The creation of a safe space, it doesn't happen. So all of a sudden, it cannot just like come up and say that, oh my God, now you have to talk to me all of a sudden, because that will take a very long time. It's a very longer process that has to happen. And in the time of in the time of pandemic, you will see that the idea of schools have gone up and the child is very limited into their own houses. And then that if abuse happen, so where will that child go? And Dr. Jugal Kishore said that in the first 11 days of pandemic, you see 92,000 cases emerging. And these are just calls that were made. There are like thousands more calls that were not being able to made because not every child has access to the telephone. Not every family might have access to the phone. So you'll see the crisis looks like massive. It's like a glacier. Only the tip is the reported cases that we see, but then there is a vast majority of cases that go unreported. And other than that, there is another point that I want to highlight is how online has become. So if a child has become also important in pandemic, like you'll see online classes happening, our webinar is happening on online. You would see the child also, the children or adolescents are also interacting with the online. And then online space becomes more darker and it becomes more important to deal with. Um, you see like child predators tricking the child. You see the recent boys' locker room incident where the entire violence was almost exposed immediately. So if the child is privileged enough to have the online spaces, so how do you protect that? And so this is why I feel like the child sexual abuse becomes really important in the time of pandemic when the social circles are almost not there, and whatever the circle child has is very intimate, whether it's with the close family or whether it's with the mobile screen or the computer screen. The relationship is very intimate, and within such intimate and close spaces, the occurrence of violence or sexual abuse becomes like really high. And I think this is why we need to have such conversation, and we need to keep having this conversation not within the family but within the family also, along with having this conversation in schools as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jitendra. Moving on, so now that we have discussed this issue at length, I would like to ask Dr. Jugal that what are the steps, some of the steps that can be taken up to step up the protection of children from sexual exploitation and things like that during the pandemic?
Yeah, all the panelists, particularly Monica and Jitendra, has already make the subject very clear that somewhere we have to give value to certain areas which is not there. Traditionally, we are in a society where sex has become a taboo, and it is not a part of our functions. That is a big problem. What we are finding because of our, you can say, culture, religion, all these things are playing a role. uh, for last many years we are doing this life skills education in schools, and we are finding that they come up with a lot of issues and they learn many things. So what I personally feel that such kind of sexual exploitation and abuse can be reduced when some of the life skills, and rather I'll say that life skills is not only beneficial for children but for everybody. Everybody must know these things, but unfortunately it's not inculcated or trained. We are not trained in those areas. uh, we require coordination between various group of people, and they should be on the same platform, like the parents and a pediatrician, the police people, how they handle, they have no understanding of how to talk to a child. So their tuning and their understanding is also required. The social workers, the community people, and when they come to the hospital, the doctor, how they are talking to, or say the workers like the nurse and other people, how they are talking. to a child, or maybe overall. So all the, these people, whether they are dealing with children who are having sexual abuse, or themselves as a part of the society, somewhere they have mixed or confused state of how to deal with, and that is a big problem. They should have a clear idea, clear understanding that these things are happening, and they are, traumatizing. They are, decreasing the potential of the growth of the child, and we are suffering, rather that, families are suffering. So if we give value to human life, then I think these things become more valuable. Otherwise, it is not. So the strategy should be adopted for such kind of, sexual exploitation abuse, to deal with that. We require training, and teaching, and education. Now, rightly said that education start in the school, and in the school also, the sex education should become part of the total curriculum, and they should have the very free dialogues. As we are talking about lung, similarly we should talk about, vagina and other part of the body, which are, similar, because they are the part of the body. So why certain, organ becomes so, secretive, and other are not? So if we have such kind of openness of the body and caring of every part of the body, then things become very easy. And the relationship is also require, like, what kind of relationship issues emerge out when you have various kind of boundaries, which Jitendra has said. So in what kind of boundary we play a role, and that roles are clear or not, how deep you can go into those all rules is to be, learned by the children. So various groups are there. We require training, education, child services staff. Like, uh, we have the pandemic is going on, and if suppose child suffer from sexual abuse, and if you go to the hospital today, he will not be handled, because whole staff is now looking after the COVID, and there is emergencies. So nobody is going to take care of, and all the police are engaged in those all, COVID duties. So this is not an issue. They will immediately shed off their responsibility. So one should understand that this is also, a suffering, and it is a part of the COVID, COVID pandemic. So one cannot segregate the activities, that this is infection, and I have to look after the infection, and other associated, problems which can kill the person. You know, the person can go into depression, anxiety, and then leading to suicides. So they are all possible. And same thing happened because you feel so helpless that no person is coming forward to help, and this is quite common in, this pandemic like COVID. So that is what is required at this point of time when we are talking about this COVID and child sexual abuse. Now, Jitendra has also discussed about this online, sexual abuse. So physical, and happening in home, and also the online, which are again, sometimes they are known, and sometimes they do not know each other. Still, you have the relationship, and you are in a very like, you never understand what is going on, and then you find yourself totally. So this cyber crime, people have to be in it, and immediately something is happening, then immediately some kind of relief is required, action is required. uh, we also need to see that, when we are separating the family, like in COVID, what happened that if we have a small nuclear family, and one parent or both parents suffer from COVID, so whom you are, leaving the children? Suppose there are 2 or 3 children are there, so can you separate out, or if they are adult enough? So we are finding, when we have gone to the Madhya Pradesh, the children has to go to the quarantine with the parents. So you can imagine that they are not suffering, but they have to go because nobody is there to look after. So do we have, some homes where they can be safely placed and their needs can be handled? So you can imagine the issues are many and the problems are many. It is only possible when we start realizing it and thinking. So Jitendra, very good that you have brought out this issue that we should discuss this sexual abuse on this forum. So at least, some people realize that yes, people are suffering, particularly the very vulnerable and small children are suffering, and we don't have anything, concrete for them. So this is a new line of thinking, and we should work on it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jugal. My next question is for Ms. Sarita. That let's say once a child who has reported sexual abuse comes forward, then what is the kind of childcare plan that is being adopted by the WCD for taking care of this person? Miss Sarita?
हेलो यस मैम केयर प्लान का है हमारा आईसीपी है इंडिविजुअल केयर प्लान जो है हमारा फॉर्म 7 है जिस एक्ट के अंदर जो भी हमारे पास बच्चा आता है उसका विद इन 15 डेज के अंदर हमारा केयर प्लान बनता है तो यूजुअली सारा जितने भी बच्चे हमारे पास आते हैं उनका जो है केयर प्लान उनका जो केस वर्क होता है वेलफेयर ऑफिसर ऑलरेडी मेक करता है तो यूजुअली कोविड में भी जो भी बच्चे हमारे पास हैं जो पहले हमारे पास बच्चे रहे कोविड से पहले भी रहे तो उनका भी हमारा केयर प्लान बनता है और जब हमारे जो बच्चे जिनको हम आइसोलेशन वार्ड में रखा था और फिर बाद में क्योंकि हमारे पास जो केसेस आए थे वो कम ही केसेस आए थे सेक्सुअल अब्यूज के लव और अलपमेंट के जो केसेस थे वो ज्यादा थे तो उसमें हमारा जो केयर प्लान है हमारे काउंसलर जो है होम में वो उनकी काउंसलिंग करते हैं और उसके बाद उनके साथ मिलके जो हमारे वेलफेयर ऑफिसर है उनका केयर प्लान बनाते हैं और जब उनको काउंसलिंग लगता है कि मेंटल हेल्थ की जरूरत है तो हमारे मेंटल हेल्थ के जो भी मानस फाउंडेशन है उनसे हमारी काउंसलिंग उनकी दोबारा की जाती है और फिर उसके साथ हमारा जो केयर प्लान है बच्चों के क्या नीड है किस बेस पे वो सारा हमारा केयर प्लान रेगुलरली सभी जैसे पहले बनता था वो अभी भी वैसे ही बनता है तो उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ये केयर प्लान
Thank you so much, Miss Sarita. Moving on to Miss Monica Lakhanpal. Ma'am, could you tell us a little about what are the immediate measures that can be taken once the crime has been committed?
The moment you suspect or you get to know of any crime, can you hear me? That's the first question I want to ask.
Yes.
Okay. The moment we get to know of any crime or we suspect
Miss Monica, you're not audible.
Hello.
Any crime of this nature, the first step should be to actually go to local police, or there are
Miss Monica, there seems to be some internet connection issues. Can you please repeat what you just said? We missed that.
Okay.
We can barely hear you, Monica.
Miss Monica, can you please repeat?
Special juvenile police units in every district. If you, for whatever reason, cannot find them, then you can also go to local police and file a complaint. I can Jugal smiling. Give me finish from here. Maybe that will make it better. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Is it better?
Yes.
Yeah, the voice is much better.
Better?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
much
better.
I hope. Just a minute. उधर better है?
जी
Okay,
जी
one second.
बताइए।
I'll have to keep walking and talking, I guess. So as I was saying, the moment we get to know or suspect any such crime has happened, or it comes to our knowledge through someone, the first thing we should do is go to, one second, Special Juvenile Police Unit, which is established in every district. For whatever reason, if you cannot find that, you can always go to local police and register a complaint there. The complaint, one has to be very careful, has to be specific, because this is on behalf of the child. At times the child can't explain, or is too small to actually address the entire issue to a mother or guardian or someone the child who really trusts, can actually help the child in narrating the entire incident. It's better for a mother to do it, because the child at that age, suppose he's 3 years old, there are so many cases that we are seeing nowadays when the child is barely talking. So he can explain with gestures. So it is our responsibility to take it forward. Now, after doing that, there are certain other things that we have to follow, and not just for parents, guardian, or someone who's a caretaker, but also for a person, a media person, for example, or a hotel or school staff. The moment they get to know, they have to immediately report the matter. And I'll say why. It's not an option given to them. It's not an option for anyone. It's not a moral duty anymore. Under this act, there is a penal provision attached. So if you do not report, there can be imprisonment for 6 months and fine. So it becomes a duty on us to immediately do that. Now, once you file a complaint, the police is supposed to register the case within 24 hours and take the matter forward. If they see any issue with the child, they will immediately report to the Child Welfare Committee, who will then decide if the child needs to go to a welfare home or a protection home, or wherever they decide, or any immediate medical help is required. Because as we know, these offenses that are mentioned under this act are penetrative, non-penetrative, sexual assault, sexual harassment, various categories. So if any medical urgency is there, or medical examination needs to be conducted, then the mother, again, a guardian or a caretaker, should be there with the child. If there is a female child, then you have to ensure that, a female doctor is there. These are the things that you can't ignore. You can't say, oh, we weren't aware of it. Because the idea behind this act is very clear. Let me tell everyone, it's the welfare of the child. We can't afford the child to go through this distress again. He's already gone through it. Our duty now is to make it minimal for the child. So our effort should be to try and help the child, and the endeavor should be that he should not suffer anymore. After we complain and after the medical examination has happened, even after everything has happened for the police department, even when it goes to court, we try and make it as child friendly as possible. And we'll come to the details later as and when the debate further goes up. But the act, if we once read, I'm sure everyone has read, the first paramount thing is that we have to ensure that the child does not suffer anymore. Even the examination of the child can be conducted at her place or his place. He doesn't have to move out. The accused have to be really away from the child so that the child does not suffer anymore. There can be intimidation if the accused is in front of the child. Am I audible? I'm so sorry. Am I audible?
Yeah. No, you're audible. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're happy that
So I
Sarita
think-
joined.
Hello, Sarita ji. Finally, that we've seen you.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So that's how I think we need to move forward. So we can't be lackadaisical in our approach. We have to be very forthcoming. We have to help, at least fight for this cause. So everyone needs to take a proactive stand and go and report the moment we get to know about this offense. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Monica. So a very pertinent question that has come to us from the audience that I would like to direct to Mr. Jitendra is that how can parents identify that their children are on a risk of facing something like that?
I think when we understand how parents can identify, there is one thing that needs to be there, whether there are any mechanisms in place inside the house for the child to be approaching their own parents. Usually, what we see in a traditional society understanding, we'll see there is a hierarchy between. So the father will be the dominant figure, then there'll be the mother, then there'll be the children, and the relationship between the child and the parents would be like, uh, in majority of the cases, will be like very stagnant. So people, so the adolescent, even if they face any difficulty in the school, they won't be sharing with the parents because the mechanism has not been developed. So directly into jumping onto the steps that how can you identify with that there is an abundance of resources, how can you do that? But before that, for the child to be approachable and child to be approaching to your parents, you need to develop that kind of a safe space inside the house. How do you do that? You begin with like smaller conversation. A lot of parents I have seen in my own work, they would provide storybooks for the children. They'll say that these are the story. You'll see Cinderella story, your Disney fairy tale story, your Panchatantra, your Hitopadesh. So through those stories, the moral is to teach the children that these are the good things and these are the bad things. We create the binaries between the good and the bad. And once we see that kind of a binary happening, a lot of children learn. I have learned myself a lot from these short stories. So then, what's stopping the parents to introduce some kind of those material with those children? So you introduce that kind of stories. You introduce a little bit of that amount. There are, if you, I think on the government website, there is a book series by Kamla Basi, designed by UNFPA. It's called Kishoravastha Se Mulaqat. It begins with chapter by chapter. It begins with the story of a bird, and the bird tells the child, "Oh, you're growing up. I can see the changes in your body. Why don't you talk about it?" And that becomes a really nice way to put all those words and the kind of terminology that has been used. That's very adolescent friendly. So you introduce that kind of a material with that. You create that safe space because what I believe is by just saying that it's a safe space, you can say whatever to us. It doesn't create a safe space. To create a particular safe space for the child to be free enough to like discuss all this matter, it has to begin from the house. The structure, which is very rigid and a lot of time it's like very patriarchal inside the house, it needs to be broken down. It needs to be shown that the power dynamics between the parents and the child is almost equal and mutual respectful towards each other. Once you create that, then there is a space, and then you will see the children and the healthy conversation is happening between the child and the parents. And once you do that, then you can come up with the idea, like discovering how your child, if you know that if your child is being sexually abused, there are certain signs and psychologists have identified. These are the reports you will find in many childcare websites. These are the reports you will find on Ministry of Women Child Development and Ministry of Health. You will find all this information over there. You will see. So one of the primary the signs of child sexual abuse is the isolation, because the child doesn't know how to react within the circle. Right? Outside the circle, if child feels that he or she is being violated or they being violated, what the first thing they do is they feel this sense of isolation because they don't know whom to approach, and your mechanisms are not in place, right? The child cannot approach the parent because he's fearful, either he's fearful or either there has been no mechanism in place for the child to be approaching the parents. And once that happens, you will notice a sudden change, and these behavioral changes, because I'm not a trained psychologist, so I really can't give out a list of other signs. But if you look at all the online data that is available, like you can look at UNICEF's website. There is a whole bunch of lists and whole bunch of documents that are there to understand the signs and symptoms if your child has been sexually abused. And I think that has to happen. But before, and I would always give this as a question, that before jumping onto the signs, you need to create a safe environment, because the child needs to feel safe in sharing his or her experiences, right? Because the child abuse should not just end his entire social interaction at that point. This incident happened. Now you can't interact anymore. You need to encourage the child that if that incident happened, that was not your fault. It was the fault of the person who has committed that act. And you need to then encourage child to get back to the social life. And that's, I feel like it's a larger process that has to go on. And before jumping that, I feel like all the parents, especially in the time of this pandemic, and if they have time, they need to brush up their own those skills, like how to create mechanism and safe spaces for the child to be approaching the parents. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jitender. Another question that has come to us from the participants, I would like to direct it to Dr. Jugal. So the question that is being asked is that having recognized that because children are confined to their homes only these days, has the government made any special provisions to make sure that children are not sexually abused?
I told you about the whole, yeah, I told you about that whole machinery, whether it is a police or a health worker or social work, everybody is into the, need of the family or need of the, patients. We are not focusing on some of the, requirement like the domestic violence and sexual violence. That's not a priority. So that is why some guidelines are given, but guidelines are only just guideline. We require some kind of mechanism by which it can be properly implemented. So I will say that we don't have any program running for the reduction or prevention of uh, child sexual abuse. What Sarita has said, that they have the already system in place, and if somebody comes to their notice, then that is activated. Similarly, Monica has already said that we have a law, and that law is there, so the people should come forward, and it is the duty of everybody who comes to know has to give, otherwise say his fault, or maybe I think he can be penalized for this if he's not informing, whether it is a health worker or parents or anybody. But what I really want to say, that we definitely require awareness program to our children and also adolescent and youth, regarding the three things. One is that we are having a problem, like we have a virus, and this virus is COVID-19. That's a coronavirus, and understanding of the dynamics of the infection which can occur to them. So they should be aware of these all things, and during this period what health effect can occur to them if they come in contact with or closer to. So we require distancing. So this is also important. If the children know that distancing is important, so they will definitely avoid coming in contact with the people or the person who is trying to come in contact with the children for sexual abuse or whatever. So they are aware that this is not allowed during this period of COVID. Next is that we have issue of socio-economic, all impacts because of the pandemic, and that has disturbed the school, that has disturbed everything. So that has affected them. So we require program telling that when you are at home, how you have to look after, and so child has to have the program. Similarly, we require program for the parents and also to the health workers and all type of people like the social worker, and everybody should have the understanding of that during this period. At least they have a sensitization that children can suffer and they should be handled properly. The law in place should be implemented. Similarly, the social welfare department has to work, and that is in a proper. I tell you that they've called me and said that one child is positive, and other children who are there in the home were so scared. They were so panicked. So if somebody is not there to look after, like reducing their panic, in that whole home can become a itself can become a panic house. So I had a talk on phone and discussed with the children over there, and able to answer their question. They had so many questions. So what is required, that a listening during the period of this crisis between different departments is also very important. So the parents has to be educated. So awareness program is required, that when they are home, you have to see that they are how much they are viewing uh, their phone, and how much they are on the webcam, and should we restrict the webcam or geolocation? The children, if they are if the geolocation is open, then they can be located that children are there. So you can have a chances of such kind of sexual abuse if you can find out where the child is. So parents has to make provision that such kind of things should be controlled, and child also understand that they can fall prey if they are not implementing those all things which are required. So I think that is what multi-prong. You require multi-prong strategy and coordination between the groups. I think can help much better way.
Thank you, Dr. Jugu. So one of the questions that has come from Ms. Sarita is that how can these children who are under your care plan be restored with their families during the COVID-19 pandemic?
रेस्टोरेशन में हमें जो पहले हमारे जो बच्चे थे जो कोविड-19 से पहले, तो उनके एग्ज़ाम की वजह से हमने उनको जो है रिस्टोर नहीं किया था फैमिली में। लेकिन जैसे ही हमारा कोविड-19 का हुआ और वो स्कूल बंद हुए और उनके एग्ज़ाम का आ गए, तो हमने उनको रेस्टोरेशन स्टार्ट कर दिया। लेकिन कोविड-19 में जब लॉकडाउन हुआ तो जो अदर स्टेट के जो बच्चे थे उनमें हमें रेस्टोरेशन में थोड़ी-सी प्रॉब्लम आई है। और अभी भी थोड़ी-सी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, लेकिन जितना भी हो सकता है, जो एफर्ट सीडब्ल्यूसी करती है अभी भी वो कर रही हैं, तो रेस्टोरेशन तो कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अदर स्टेट में अभी भी हमें थोड़ी बहुत प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। लेकिन हम अपने एफर्ट्स कर रहे हैं और ढूँढ रहे हैं कि किस तरह से हम उन बच्चों को रिस्टोर करें, क्योंकि अभी ट्रांसपोर्ट की भी प्रॉब्लम चल रही है और अभी पुलिस भी जो है कोविड-19 में लगी हुई है, तो हम 3rd बटालियन की भी हेल्प लेने की सोच रहे हैं। लेकिन अभी भी थोड़ा-सा प्रॉब्लम तो आ रही है, लेकिन जितने भी मैक्सिमम बच्चे हमारे जो दिल्ली में हैं, हमने उनको रिस्टोर किया है। इवन जो हमारे सेक्सुअल अब्यूज़ के जो बच्चे थे जो हमारे पास आए थे 1-2, तो उसमें जो फैमिली में जो रहना चाहते थे कि पेरेंट्स को लेना चाहते थे, तो उनको हमने सेम ही उनको रिस्टोर कर दिया था। लेकिन कुछ ऐसे थे जिनका इंसर्ट केसेस में थे, तो उनको हमने अभी लॉन्ग टर्म में रख दिया है, तो उनको हम अभी रिस्टोर नहीं कर रहे हैं। कुछ ऐसे बच्चे थे जो प्रेगनेंसी में थे और उनकी डिलीवरी हो गई थी, तो उनके बाद हमने उनको सरेंडर बच्चे कर दिए और फिर उसके बाद उसको फैमिली में रिस्टोर कर दिया है। जो दिल्ली में थे उनको तो हमने मैक्सिमम जो है रिस्टोर किया, लेकिन अदर स्टेट में अभी थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है।
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Sarita. So, okay. So one of the things is, Miss Monica, I was actually planning to ask you these two questions separately, but there are two questions that have come to us repeatedly. So I'll ask you as one. That one of the things being asked is that how do we overcome the lack of legal awareness? What are the kind of provisions available for this? But the common man does not know. So how do we educate that person? That is one part of it. The other thing that has been repeatedly asked to us is there any legal provision to ensure that the accused is away from the victim?
Absolutely. This act, I actually owe a special thanks to our legislatures for being so compassionate and full of empathy while dealing with the act, because it's only meant for children below 18. And it is very important, that people need to be aware that at every stage under this act, the child is fully protected. Not just protected in terms of, someone is going to be there with the child, but even during the judicial process, whether it's pre-trial, post-trial, investigation time, medical examination time, every stage, the child's welfare is paramount. No one will even ask direct questions from a child because it can be intimidating, even to the extent that a police officer can't be in his uniform. So, they're being so careful that under no stage the child goes through any trauma. So I want to tell everyone, when they, the perception is, if you complain, one is there is a sexual assault that's already happened with you. But once you go and complain the police, they'll start insulting you, ask questions which are going to be intimidating. The child will go through further trauma. There's nothing like that. Even during medical examination, the mother is always there with the child, or a caretaker is there with the child. They will ensure that minimum or no trauma at all is caused to the child. In fact, the doctor is given a responsibility of being a protector. A police officer act as a protector of the child and not as a police officer. That's why the uniform has been taken away. So at every stage, this has been taken care of. So I don't see why this doubt is coming. That needs to, that is very important part which you asked me. And I think that awareness needs to be created so that people start understanding that it's not how earlier laws used to be. That once you've actually gone through rape and then second time, the questions actually, really disturb you and traumatize you. That's not the case with this act. It is very, very child friendly. So I think everyone should be forthcoming with this. And there's nothing to fear, nothing at all to fear. And I'm sorry, what's the second question that you asked?
So the one question that you rightly answered was regarding the lack of legal awareness. The other thing is there a provision to ensure that the accused is away from the child?
Yeah, that's also very important. The accused, so when the examination is happening or the court proceeding is happening, the accused is kept away from the victim so that the victim doesn't get intimidated in any manner whatsoever. The accused is never in presence of the witness. Even like I said, during examination, there is no cross-examination for the victim because being a child. So at every stage, they will ensure, whether it's police, whether it's the courtroom, they will ensure that the accused and victim never come face to face, not even remotely. So there's nothing to worry about that. The second question, as you rightly asked, that how can we create awareness? I'll start by saying it is not something that we can handle individually. It is a problem that our community is facing, like Corona, for example. If I decide not to walk out of my house, but my husband decides or my kid decides, it won't really help. It's a cumulative effort by everyone. Just by one person doing it won't really help. So we have to create mass awareness. When there is a community in question and the crime is affecting the entire nation at length, what we have to do is we have to create mass awareness about people, about children's right. I think that's the beginning of it. And once that happened, we have to have a nationwide workshop, in all vernacular languages also in various districts, because a lot of people don't understand Hindi or English in various states. So we have to stress on the fact that there has to be vernacular language to make people understand, and especially explain each and every provision of the act and tell them that it's child friendly. The identity of the child will not be disclosed. So they can be rest assured. Lot of people have this apprehension that log kya kahenge. That thought can go out of their mind. It's not going to go out. In fact, there are penal provisions on even media. They cannot disclose the child's name. So we can be rest assured that it will not be misused by anyone. Second, I think what we really need to do is we need to do a proper survey and understand where this thing is stemming from. Like I started this debate that, the issue is that sex is unfortunately a taboo in our culture. So we need to change the perception in every household. We need to regularly talk about this. We can't ignore it by saying that, we don't want to talk about it. It's a taboo and one shouldn't even discuss this. So on an everyday basis, when we go through a newspaper and we come across any kind of child abuse, I should be comfortable enough as a child to discuss with my father that how do we overcome this? What is this? And my father should be able to explain me this problem the way he explains me that beta aapka pet dard isliye ho raha hai, aapne junk food khaya hai. As simple as this. Make it really simple and simplify the issue. Don't make it sound like, oh my God, it's sexual and we cannot talk about it. The moment you try and address that issue, and I think half the problem is gone. It is the first thing that we need to counter. Change our mentality. If we want to really bring a change, we have to bring a change in ourselves. Then only we'll see the change. Otherwise, it's impossible. No law enforcement agency can help you because the information will never reach. It will not reach to them. So they can't really help you with anything, or the courts can't help you. You will only hear in newspapers maybe 10, 15 cases or 15 cases that are reported on everyday basis. You'll only hear about that. Rest people will suffer in silence. And if we are ready to accept that kind of life for our future generation, then it's in our hands. It's our responsibility. I think we should just take it up. Enough of being quiet and just talking behind four walls and saying, okay, let's not talk about it, reprimanding our child by just saying that never say in front of you know, anyone about sexual issues, even going to a gynecologist is embarrassing, for God's sake. I mean, I remember a lot of my colleagues, when they have to go to the doctor, they have a headache or they have a stomach issue, they just say, you know, I'm not feeling well, I have to go there. But if they have any menstrual issue, they have a gynecologist because there's a problem. So I know where these issues are coming from. It is coming from, unfortunately, the way our upbringing has been. And there is no blame, I mean, there's no blame game right now because we are also doing the same thing at the same time. So once we change, the next generation will not be the same. The crime will definitely go down. But let's take the first step. I think that's really important for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Miss Monica. Okay, so due to the paucity of time, we'll only be able to take one more question, and I direct that to Mr. Jitendra, post which we'll have a conclusion of the session by Dr. Jugal. So, Mr. Jitendra, there is one question that has come to us regarding positive interventions by government agencies. So some countries have this foster home type of arrangement wherein children can be temporarily supported after removing them from a home where a family member was abusive in nature towards the child. So why has the government in India not taken such steps?
I think the question is in two parts. So the one part is the positive intervention, another is the about the issue of foster care homes. I'll start with the part one, and then I'll go into the part two. I'll try to make it as brief as I can. With the positive intervention, I would like to start with one case. So last year, because I've been working in this particular field, and I totally agree with what Monica was saying previously about how we have to change, and there are like multiple attitude based issue. Like we know the gynecologist is supposed to help me, but if I'm a young girl, I'm below the age of 18, if I go to the gynecologist, I will face a lot of discrimination. The gynecologist is going to ask me, oh, are you sexually active or not, because then it's a larger problem. And me having worked in this field of sexuality education for over a 6 year, we see these trends coming up, and we know that how it happens, and we know why it is so important. So I would like to highlight that the importance of comprehensive sexuality education, that is really much needed. In the government policy, what we see regarding comprehensive sexuality education or just sex education, we see schemes like Satya, schemes like adolescent education program. We see those policies are in place, they happen, but what happens is majority of these policies are very much focused on family planning. So this particular kind of information will be given to a girl who's about to get married, or with the idea that the girl will get married, so she needs to know about contraception, she needs to know about that. Or if the boy will get to know about condoms only when they'll think that he's old enough to or he might get married or something like that. So that's very much limited the entire idea of sex education, because sex education is not just about thinking around sex or curing certain kind of ideas. Sex education is all about, it's also about like talking about your body, talking about your sexuality, talking about your desire, talking about your attraction, talking about how you grow up in a culture, how you grow up in a particular social context. आप बड़े कैसे हो रहे हो उसके अंदर, उससे आप जो है बहुत सीखते हो इसके अंदर. One example that I will give you around sexual abuse, how it tackles that. So last year, I was working in Rajasthan in a very rural conservative community. I would not like to name the community because that puts a lot of stigma on the community. So in that particular community, we were working with this one government school, and I was discussing sexual abuse, and I was trying to, know what they know, if they had any information before me. So the child, this one young boy who's around 13 years of age, he comes up and tells me that if anything happens inside the family, so if my close relative or any of my family member is going to sexually assault me, I will not report it. He said that because my family is such that my mother is a widow woman, and if something like that happens, her income will be stopped, her support from the community will be stopped, everything will be stopped. So how will you respond to that kind of a child, right? His concerns are very legit. You really can't isolate his entire family because he's a single child of a widowed mother. So how would you make sure that the child is secured while reporting such cases? And this is where I feel like the attitude change has to come up by introducing sexuality education in its complete sense, not just making sex education just about family planning or just about we give you information about condoms, we give you information about contraception, but also talk about your mental health when you grow up. Like all of us have grown through puberty. Many of us were not given that information. When I was growing up, I didn't know what's happening to my body. I didn't know, why am I getting so many hair on my face, or how the attraction happens, and a lot of people are suffering from body image issues as well. So you see, the child sexual abuse issue is not just concerned with one particular dimension. It's not in isolation. It's a larger kind of an idea, and it can only be tackled with positive intervention, where the governments will stop just focusing on family planning. If they include sex education or comprehensive sexuality education in the school in its full sense, and also intervene within the family, where the education is given to the parents as well. So under the Satya scheme, you would see that a lot of Anganwadi and Asha Bahens, they're told, like, they can go and talk to the community. So in that particular scheme, the young people are supposed to work with the children, the adults are supposed to work with the family. But the issue remains same, that Asha and Anganwadi Bahens are like very underpaid. They're not getting any salary. So if you're not getting enough money to work like 3 times of your previous work, so how would you even like do any kind of work? So that needs to be fixed. At the same time, the government needs to make positive intervention, not by just introducing sex education in its full sense within the family, outside the family, but also like giving um, proper, remuneration or proper wages to the ground worker who have to walk miles. Like you go to Uttarakhand, you will see these women. There is no transport available. They walk miles in the hilly region just to reach a community and provide some kind of information on pregnancy or some kind of information on menstruation, and they're still very underpaid, and that has to change. So the attitude has to change into that. The second part of this thing, why we haven't had any foster care home, because India is a very dense populated country. You really can't trust, because how would you ensure that your foster care homes are secured enough, or your institution is safe enough? Like, do we have that workforce? Do we have so many people looking after all that? How would you ensure that? And that's like a huge task to take it at the hand. You really don't want to pick one child from the house who has been sexually abused and place their child into another institute where he is constantly being reminded that he's there into that, or she's there into that particular place because he or she have been sexually abused. That foster care center becomes that reminder of their abuse, reminder of the violence they have faced. And that's why I feel like before jumping on to, and it's not like that India doesn't have, like, you will see WCD, I think Ms. Sarita can tell us more better. Like there are care homes that are being run by organization. You look at All India Women Conference, you look at Shakti Vahini, you look at all the other women's organizations, they have their own care home center. But what happens when the child goes there, we have no idea. There is Umeed Biradri Bhavan, where the children are taken into who are sexually abused and who have faced violence. They are living there for years. We don't know what happens to them. We don't know what happens to their mental health because the resources are very limited. We might want to say that, oh, India the huge human human workforce happening working for them, but at the same time, we are a poor country. We don't have that much money to invest into. The interest of the government policies, as you see in the pandemic, has exposed that how much we spent on our health expenditure. So how would you expect a government who's spending only 1 or 2% of its GDP on health sector is going to spend more money on establishing such centers? So it's a very larger kind of issue. And as I think Monica one point said that we don't need to rely on the government or the policies all the time, and I totally agree with that, because once you start relying on the legal mechanisms continuously, then it's a problem, because then you're saying, oh, I'm not going to take any of the responsibility. I will let the judiciary handle. I will let the legislature handle all that what is going on. And that brings to my final point that it has to begin from the house, where you provide sex education inside the house. You make safe spaces for your children. You create that environment so the child doesn't feel unsafe enough to talk to the parents or to the peers, or even the child feels that I'm close to this particular person. And that can happen is only through introducing as much as material and resources that are available on government websites, on other NGO websites. Like we work at Beyond Eye, what we do is we create comics, we create funny videos, we create those kind of content to discuss all this issue. There are organizations like Tarshi who has created books, a series of books how to discuss sex education with the child. There is a red book, there is a blue book. One book is for 10 to 14, another for 15+ year old. With the government itself, there is a Kishore Avastha Se Mulaqat book series that is really helpful. So you see all the resources are there. You just need to like go to the, if you're privileged enough and if you have internet, or you can just approach this organization, or you approach your local government authority, like where Sarita might know more about these resources. You just need to go and check those resources and start introducing those resources in your house. Only then I feel like we can make a positive intervention. We can have as many webinars as we can throughout the year, but they won't be helpful unless we see people coming out themselves and doing such labor to get those resources and giving out the resources to their own children. So I feel like the comprehensive sexuality education in the house and in the school is the way, is the first step to go to prevent any such incidents, such violent incidents. So I think prevention has to come from these steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jitendra. It was a lovely session, very informative, and I really hope that everybody who attended was able to take back something. And like as all the panelists mentioned, that talking about it is one part of the other thing is putting it to action. So I would really request Dr. Jugal to kindly just conclude the session for us, to sum it up for us. Thank you.
I say thank you very much. I think everybody has said very good points, and most probably people will understand that why we have to have a different approach. And whatever is going on, maybe I think we require more improvement in that at the ground level. I have few points to highlight from all of you, what you have said. One thing is that child sexual abuse is common and increase manifold in crisis situation like pandemic, COVID. So whatever the disaster or whatever will come in future, we require this group to be handled. So we definitely require program beforehand. So this is the right time if we can create some kind of program. The second point is that child sexual abuse has serious health impact, and this health includes everything, like it's a social, mental and physical. All components are disturbed totally in a short time, and a long term effect, all are affected. So we cannot neglect this aspect. The third is we have institutional support. Definitely we know that we have a law, we have police, we have social organization, NGOs. But what Jitendra is trying to say, and what Sarita is trying to say, we have to have, a merging of all these things and improving further. So the child is at ease. Child is, not targeted. Child is not suffering. So if suppose we are sending to the institutional area, then there is a problem. So somewhere we have to place the child in a very comfortable and maybe in a same environment. But Sarita already know that sometimes it becomes so difficult that placing the child to the family, because there the child is suffering. So that time it becomes difficult that where to place. So we require a kind of environment created by the nation where the child can be comfortable. So such kind of environment institutions need to be created. Only just one or two NGOs working somewhere is may not be very good, but maybe I think they are just a success story and can be increase at the national level. Monica has rightly said that we require a lot of research in this area. So more research is required, perception, many other things. And awareness program should focus on comprehensive sexual, education, what Jiten has said. So that is what I personally feel. But in the end, I just take the words of what Monica has said, that we have to bring, change. And that change is of culture, social, even professional change is required. The way the doctors and other people are trained, and psychological change of the, maybe I think the whole family or maybe parents, everything. So that change has to start, and that is the right webinar, I'll say, of the beginning of this kind of change. So thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. And we have 4 speaker, but we were thinking about taking some psychologists and psychiatrists also, because they are very important component of whole series. But maybe I think in as Jitendra has said, that we have to do multiple, and we require a lot of workshop. So maybe to make the awareness, as Monica has said, that legal awareness to everybody is required. So a lot of such kind of efforts are required. So we are looking forward that you are all going to play a role. And Sarita has come out. Thank you very much, because your involvement is very, very important. You are from the government side. You know real things, and you very nicely tackle the issues that yes, problem are there, but you are facing challenges. So good enough you expose rightly that yes, we have problem, we have a lot of challenge, and in spite of all those challenge, you are working. So congratulations for all these efforts. So thank you very much, Vrinda. Thank you for your nicely, being the moderating things and becoming the link of each one of us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You asked Akanksha to, close this session.
Yes,
Bye,
yes, yes.
everybody.